All right, so you've finally done it. You've filled out an application or you've gone to an audition to finally obtain your dream job and work on a cruise ship. But for some reason, after you've done all the right things, you still don't hear back from the cruise line for days, weeks, or even months. And when you finally do get an official contract offer, it can take equally as long before you get on the ship. So in today's video, I'm going to break down exactly why that happens and how the process works from getting hired to getting on the ship. We're going to go over that and of course a little bit more in today's episode of Shiplife. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started, shall we?
Let's go!
All right, what's up Shiplife crew? My name is Jay and welcome to the Shiplife, where I talk about all things regarding cruise ships and the cruise ship industry. If this just happens to be your first time visiting my channel, make sure you guys smash that subscribe button. That way you get notified when I post my new videos. All right guys, so like I said, for today's episode, we are going to be covering the hiring process. How long does it really take for you to get hired on a ship and go from, pretty much the hiring process to actually physically being on the ship? Now, for today's episode, guys, please understand that obviously there are a lot of factors involved with this whole situation. All right, I'm gonna try to be as thorough as I can, but like I said, there really are factors depending on like what cruise line you're working for, how long your contract's gonna be, how you're hired, whether it be through a third party or directly through the cruise line. There's so much, and I'm gonna try to break all that down as best as I can. So just kind of bear with me. Of course, I want to keep things just somewhat organic. I don't want to do all these cuts and edits and make it seem like everything is cut and dry, because it's not. The hiring process on the ship can be very interesting and at times very frustrating for the potential crew member. Now, I'm just going to talk about, of course, my personal situation, how I got on the ship, and then, of course, I'll talk about the experiences of others. That way, you guys can kind of have some kind of context as far as how the situation would go down if you guys were to be hired for a cruise ship. Now, just from the very, very beginning, of course, there are a lot of people all over the world that want to work on a cruise ship just for the fact that you get to travel and you get to have this crazy experience. And, working on a cruise ship is a dream job for a lot of people, which is understandable because it honestly is a great experience for anybody. Now, when it comes to the situation, I know a lot of people typically would hire or fill out an application online, right? And of course, naturally, you guys got to understand the sheer amount of applicants that are applying every single day for any particular cruise line. It doesn't matter if it's Norwegian, Royal Caribbean, it doesn't matter, right? Online, it's an international database, right? And this is part of the reason why a lot of people, when they apply, they don't hear from the cruise line for anywhere from, days. Most of the time, it's weeks or months. Right, and that's the crappy part to it, because that's usually the turnaround, right? A lot of times, and the main question that I typically get asked when it comes to cruise ships is, people will email me asking me how long it's going to take for the cruise line to contact them. They said, well, I haven't heard from the cruise line in a month. When are they going to contact me? When? And the problem is I can never say for sure. And I know a lot of people are here because they want to know exactly what is the perfect amount of time for you to get contracted, for you to get hired for the ship, or actually be offered an official contract. Now, honestly, I can tell you guys, and anybody that has worked on ships can tell you for sure, there is no surefire way to know exactly how long it's going to take for you to get hired, right? Because again, there's so many factors that I'm going to break down in a minute. But you guys just have to understand that it's just, there's a lot of moving parts involved. But typically, I can at least tell you that if you fill out an application for a cruise ship and you don't hear anything from around anywhere from a couple weeks to up to maybe 3 months, then you unfortunately may not be hearing from that cruise line unless there's some kind of an emergency or whatever. But that can also work on the reverse end. I've seen people that work on ships that, they fill out an application or they go to an audition as a dancer or entertainer and they get offered a contract literally the next day. But of course, it always comes down to the availability. When somebody fills out an application for a cruise line, of course, you send in your resume, you send in your demo reel, whatever it is that you're going to send in, and it goes over to the cruise line. They're hiring either their HR department or the hiring department, whoever's involved, because of course there's probably going to be different branches depending on where the cruise line is based out of. They're going to review it, and they're obviously going to compare you to literally thousands of other people, and then they're going to try to cipher the right ones out that they believe would be perfect for the job. Now, of course, you can understand if you got a couple people looking at thousands of potential crew members and checking their background, checking their history, checking their resume, checking their experience, it could take a while, right? And that honestly is the crappy part. Now, that's why I'm saying there is no sure way to determine exactly how long it's going to be until you're actually offered a contract. Now, when you are offered a contract, of course, it could be a great feeling, but what determines how long it takes for you to get from the official contract offer and to the ship varies on a lot of things. One being is how you're contracted, right? On the ship, you guys have to understand, and a lot of people may not know this, that nobody is employed technically with the cruise line, right? Everybody's kind of on a contract. Even the captain, he may do 3 months on, 3 months off. I think that's for the most part is how it works for them. But everybody else is doing like 6 to 9 month contracts, right? But some people are hired directly through the cruise line. Some people are hired through a third party. For example, if you work in the spa, you're hired through, oftentimes, or at least for a lot of cruise lines, you're hired through a company called Steiner, right? For example, me being an entertainer, I was hired directly through Norwegian at the time. That's the company I was working for, right? It varies. There's a lot of factors involved with that situation. And of course, there's just a lot of paperwork as well. So let's say you work in the spa, right? Or you're becoming a personal trainer. You are going to be hired through Steiner, right? And Steiner, of course, has to figure out the proper paperwork and get everything done, send it over to the ship, and then they have to send it back and verify all the credentials and your rooming situation. There's just so much to figure out before you even get on the ship. Now, of course, while all the things are getting taken care of on more of like a business or detailed end, right? While the cruise line is figuring out your flight information, while they're getting you registered in the system, while they're making sure your room and board is set up, while they're taking care of all that stuff, there's a lot of stuff that you personally have to go take care of, right? Now, I can't say exactly for sure what exactly you'd have to get done because I'm not sure who's exactly watching this, right? Whether you're from America or India or the Philippines or France, right? It determines exactly what you would need to get done, right? For example, me being from the US, I had to get a physical, I had to get a yellow fever shot. What else did I have to get? I think that was really it for the most part. I mean, there were just a couple of details that went into the physical, but other than that, that was really it. But depending on your country, you may have to get a certain number of shots. You might have to get like 50 shots, right? You might have to get a shot in the butt. I don't know. You know, it just depends on where you're coming from, right? Some people have to get a work visa. I didn't because thankfully when I was working for Norwegian, I didn't have to get all that done, right? It just depends on where you're coming from, right? Some people have to get just certain documentations done. Some people are working through some kind of work agency, so there's some additional paperwork they may have to get done. And this is why it may take so long for you to officially start your contract or physically just get on the ship. Right? It's just all those little fine details that come together, right? And a lot of cruise lines, typically what they do is like some people may get offered their contract and they may not get on the ship until a month later. That's because they want to allot the amount of time, you know, they want to give you enough time pretty much just to get all your stuff done, right? Because if you are set to get on the ship a week from today, right? And they say, okay, we need your physical, we need your yellow fever, we need your work visa. Some of that stuff could potentially be impossible, at least for you to go run around and get done because you'll be running around like a chicken with your head cut off and you don't have time because you still have to quit your job. You still got to say goodbye to the family. You still got to pack up. You got to find somebody to sublease your apartment, right? The cruise lines do their best to kind of allot that time for you to conveniently get stuff done and prepare to leave. That way you're not inconveniencing them later on. And that's also why they do the physical. That's why they try to make sure you're as healthy as you can be. They do your eye test. They do all that stuff as part of the physical, get your shots in. That way they can ensure that you're healthy, you're ready to go, and no kind of random act is gonna make it so that you either have to leave the ship or whatever. Like, you know, there are people that come there, for example, that slip through the cracks. They get on the ship and for example, their passport is expired. What do? Now they can't be on the ship because they technically can't be on the island. But of course, most cruise lines are pretty thorough about that process. It's very, very rare that may happen. But of course, they want to allot that time and make sure everything is covered. All the grounds are covered, right? And that's why it takes so long for people to get finally hired on the ship. But anyway, guys, I hope that helps. Again, I'm talking from my personal experience, from my process to get on the ship, and at least the experience of others that have worked from other companies, other agencies, right? If you guys have gone through this process already, those of you guys that have worked on ships, let me know in the comments below. Maybe it'll help out somebody. I'm just trying to do my best to give you guys general information so that you guys have an idea of how the process works. Hopefully you guys find this helpful. If you did, make sure you smash the heck out of that like button for me for the YouTube algorithm. I greatly appreciate it. That's my Friday edition of Shiplife. I'll be coming out with, of course, my Shiplife story on Sunday, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that. Again, subscribe if you haven't. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Take it easy.